Hey guys, Lawrence DeMonico here, president of RareBreed Triggers, and I'm here today to officially report that the fight is over. We won. It hasn't quite sunk in yet, so I'm going to say it again. We won.
Is that what happened? Well, I mean, it really depends on your perspective. If you're talking about Lawrence DeMonico, the individual, or RareBreed Triggers, the company, yeah, straight up, solid win. If you're talking about me, or you, or the Second Amendment movement, not really. I'll tell you what, I'll be fair. We'll call it a Pyrrhic victory at best. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. It's great to be here as always. You're watching the VSO Gun Channel, and I was going to release this video yesterday, but I have decided to recut it because right when I was doing the back end of the video, like it's already uploaded, I was literally just typing in the back stuff, Matt over at Fudbusters published his synopsis of the settlement between RareBreed Triggers and the United States government. And I'll just put it like this. There are some things that he just simply does better because he's an actual attorney and can provide more context.
Something to do with a Brazilian jiu-jitsu dojo or something? Is it just regular Floridian things that needed to be in this agreement with the DOJ?
And you can go watch his video. I'll have it linked in all the relevant places. And I've gone and found the same outfit so that I can splice these together seamlessly, or at least as seamless as my abilities will allow me to do. Today's video is brought to you by First Form. This is a pro-freedom supplement and nutrition company. And when I think of their products for you, I think of adding value to your life. And there is one product of theirs that I use more frequently than anything else that they make, and that is their meat sticks. They have these in an approximately a 20 gram of protein stick. Think smoked meat. Doesn't need to be refrigerated. Eat it on the go when you get hungry. This channel is sponsored by them. I'm literally doing an ad for them right now, and I purchased these. So what I suggest you do is go down in the pinned comment, use the link that I have listed there. That is an affiliate link. It generates sales for the channel, and let them know that I sent you. Special thanks to First Form for making today's video possible. First thing we're going to talk about is the administration and their health on the Second Amendment. We have our Second Amendment scorecard and our meter down in the corner, and we are deducting points today because I'm telling you, what the government did on this one, what the Second Amendment task force did in this case enrages me. The document starts out by defining machine gun and then beating their chest for a couple paragraphs about how awesome in Second Amendment they are. Here's a hint. When somebody has to repeatedly tell you that they are something to reinforce that they are that thing because they haven't really demonstrated it, that's what we call clue. The government nowhere in this document admits that the FRT or FRT-like devices are not machine guns. In fact, the only time that they bring up the mechanical function of the FRT or FRT-like devices is to explain why they are not going to enforce the law or why they are going to give an exception to RareBreed Triggers and not enforce the machine gun prohibition against them. And they really said two things. As long as you don't change it a whole lot, and as long as you don't make it for a handgun.
What? What the fuck?
Nowhere in the statute is there any configuration considerations when it comes to the size of the gun. In fact, when in our community, we say that machine gun trumps all. It doesn't matter if it's got a 50-inch barrel or if it's got a 5-inch barrel. A machine gun is a machine gun is a machine gun. Again, machine gun trumps all. It does not matter the configuration. So for them to say, hey, this is not going to be considered a machine gun, we're not going to come after you, provided that you don't put it on a handgun. And yes, you don't put a trigger on a handgun. But I said it that way because these people are technically incompetent and they literally wrote that shit. Which brings me up to my next point, which is basically the Department of Justice forces RareBreed Triggers to agree that they're not going to proliferate their technology any further in a couple different forms. So First is you can't make this for handguns. And they go on to define what a handgun is, and I'm surprised that they didn't use the word clip in the definition, but basically this is a handgun to them. Since we don't have any definitions of handguns anywhere else in the law that they could have used, but this is beside the point. They're really concerned about handguns for some reason. I don't know why that could be. And the other thing that they must do, I'm going to read you a direct quote on this one. RBT, RBF, Mr. DeMonico, Mr. Maxwell agree to take all reasonable efforts to engage in patent enforcement, seeking prohibitory injunctions against any person or entity that manufactures, sells, or distributes any FRT during the life of the U.S. patent, blah, 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 provided RBT, DeMonico, and Maxwell have a good faith argument that the device is within the scope of the patent. The United States will not bear any litigation costs of any patent enforcement actions. So basically, we ordain thee, you may do this thing provided that you sue anybody who tries to make another one. And I'm being very loose with that, obviously. You guys saw the quote. This is like some catch me if you can shit. So you're really good at a thing. So because you're so good at that thing, you now work for us, even though we didn't like what you were doing in the first place. And just like the premise of that movie, which was a fantastic movie, by the way, entirely fake, because the United States agrees to the extent practicable to return FRTs that it seized or were taken as a result of a voluntary surrender. Such returns must be requested by individual owners by September 30th, 2025, consistent with the instructions provided on ATF's public website. The government gave up nothing in that. In fact, they actually got some ground back. Remember, they're already under court order, but in their court order, they were told that they have to give them back. Not they have to give them back if somebody says that they had it. No, they have to give them all back. They were given a time frame to give them all back, but you didn't have to apply for it. Now you have to tell them that it was yours, and they have to give it back to you. And you have to do it by their instructions by a particular date. The government won big on that one. And then all they got to say is, oh, well, it wasn't practical to give them back. We'll consider helping you with your civil litigation, and a whole bunch of gobbledygook that amounts to, we promise that we won't do it to anybody or you ever again. So instead of leading the government into a binding precedent that could help all of us, the Trump administration and their Second Amendment task force elects to do what they've done with everything else, which is take a shortcut that will only last for however long they're in charge of the government or the government wants to play nice. Let's move on to RareBreed Triggers and Lawrence DeMonico and all of his folks. RareBreed Triggers, the entire team, the personnel, and Lawrence DeMonico have been absolutely terrorized by the federal government over this thing. It is clear that they were a political target, and it is absolutely reprehensible and disgusting what happened to these folks over the course of the last couple of years. And I would say that having spoken with Lawrence DeMonico on more than one occasion, and just looking at the man, the stress of this situation has absolutely shortened his life by many years. So because of that, I'm going to treat this with kid gloves. Because if I try to put myself into their position, I would want to be out of this as quickly and as cleanly as I could possibly get out of it. I would want out of it yesterday. And if that is what happened, and they're just fatigued with it, and they just want an assured outcome, then I could definitely see myself, I'm being real here, in that situation, taking that deal. However, this was going very well. And to take that deal instead of taking the government to the mat, I feel as though has done a disservice, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, or a couple seconds ago, that we could have had a binding precedent that did absolutely keep the government from doing something like this ever again. This was being litigated in the Fifth Circuit. So unless they have information that I don't have, which I don't know, some backdoor deal where they knew that the Fifth Circuit was going to change everything else that they had said up to this point, which I find highly unrealistic. I do not understand, outside of what I said with just wanting it to be over and having a short outcome, I do not understand why, from a Second Amendment principle position, they would not have taken it completely over the line, because they were basically on the 5-yard line. Ew, sports reference, gag. Also, they are not going to get paid for this. They are not going to get their attorney's fees. They're basically going to be a wash until you consider the ramifications of basically being an ordained monopoly. There's a little bit of slime there that I'm not feeling very good about. Well, they're going to be fabulously wealthy over this, because they're going to be able to sell this thing, and they're going to be the only people who are going to be able to do this thing, and they're going to make millions of dollars. I would say, based on what has been done to them, I will call that a wash. However, for them to sit there and claim that this is like, we beat the ATF, we won, I simply do not agree. And I think that I speak for many of you when I say that, hey, I'm glad that you guys aren't in the situation that you guys are in anymore, when speaking directly to Lawrence and the folks at RareBreed Triggers. We're glad that you're out from underneath of it. Go do your work, but don't beat your chest over this one, because you kind of screwed us. Which brings me up to National Association for Gun Rights. And they were instrumental in many of the things that we were able to get during the Biden administration. And for them to be part of this and be out there basically promoting this as a huge win, I find rather disappointing and, quite frankly, embarrassing, because that's not what it is. However, I look at it from their perspective, in that when this organization engages in something like this, a court case where they put lots of resources in over many years, and they basically lost their ass on it, to turn it into some kind of fundraising thing, feels slimy to me, but I understand why they have to, because, like I said, they also got screwed, and it probably was not their decision to accept this agreement. I don't think they probably went willingly into this, and I see the fundraising effort for what it is. It's an attempt to recoup some of the losses that they made over the course of the last couple of years, and I understand it. It still doesn't feel great to me, being that they basically have to lie and say that it was a big win, when basically we lost, because all of this is contingent on everybody playing nice and the government staying benevolent towards firearms ownership, if there is ever such a thing. I just simply see this as a temporary thing that is ultimately ill-fated and will not stand the test of time when the next rabid anti-American regime comes into power. So, again, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but this is a huge nothing burger, and I'm disappointed, because it could have been so much better.